We could have pressed that button ourselves. What's this do?
Oh.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us for this evening's event. Please take this time to silence your cell phone and noise-making devices. We have lots of events here at this Powell store, as well as our Cedar Hills and Hawthorne location. You can check out all those at our events flyers, which are on that table there, or influence desks, or at powells.com/events. Tonight, with us and Crook.
We want this on the camera, louder.
For over 2 decades, Tyler Crook has worked as a comics creator, artist, and 3D modeler in the video game industry. Released in 2011, Petrograd was Tyler's first published comic and earned Tyler the Russ Manning Promising Newcomer Award. Since then, he has worked on dozens of comics titles, including B.P.R.D Hell on Earth, Witchfinder, Bad Blood, and The Sixth Gun. Was nominated for an Eisner Award for Best New Series. Tonight we'll be talking about Out of Alcatraz, created in collaboration. Born from one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the 20th century, convicts Frank Morris and Clarence Engelin have washed ashore in San Francisco after surviving their infamous escape from Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary in June 1962. As a federal manhunt and chance encounters threaten the desperate convicts, everyone involved in this even more hellish prison than Alcatraz could ever have been. Crook will be enjoying the conversation by David F. Walker, award-winning comic book writer, filmmaker, journalist, and educator, best known for his work in graphic novels and comics, including Big Jim and the White Boy, The Black Panther Party, and the series Bitterroot and Naomi. This evening's event will also include an audience Q&A and a book signing. If you'd like to have your book signed, please line up along this side of the room and back there at this time. We have books on the cart over there for both these authors. And now, please welcome Tyler Crook and David F. Walker.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? How are you?
Oh, hey, I'm doing good. Are you talking to me?
Yeah, we're jumping into this. So let's start with the assumption that some of the people here don't know. There was a brief introduction about Out of Alcatraz, but why don't you explain a little bit about the book? I've read it, so it's not like I'm faking my way through knowing about it. But just a little bit how you came to be involved in it, and about the book itself too, because I find it fascinating.
Okay, well, the book was written by Christopher Cantwell, and he may be best known. He's been writing a lot of comics over the last maybe 5 years, but he may be best known for writing and show running a television show called *Halt and Catch Fire*. And Out of Alcatraz was intended to be his follow-up to that, but nobody wanted it. And so he showed it to our editor, Bess Polaris, at Oni Press, and she loved it, and they reached out to me and proposed the book to me. And usually when somebody who is a screenwriter sends me a comic book script, like my eyes roll back into my head so hard I could do a backflip. But this was actually really good. It was like, as I was reading this, I could really, really see how this would work as a graphic novel, and just how, and I got really, really excited for it. And the story is basically, it takes the jumping off point of the convicts who escaped from Alcatraz in 1964, and they're the only people who escaped and were never caught. And the assumption is, and at least what the federal authorities said, is that they died in the San Francisco Bay.
They always say that.
They always say that.
Yeah.
But there is some actual evidence that like a car was stolen just on the other side of the bay, and they had made a raft out of like old raincoats that was found on the beach that had made it across the bay. So there's been just tons of theories that these people, and there's some guys in Argentina who claim to be the guys, So Chris took that as a jumping off point to be like, okay, if these guys did make it off, then what happened? Because like, it's like you escaped from Alcatraz, hooray, you did it, you're free. Well,
Not
you're
at
not.
all, not even close, yeah.
You're not even close to free. And so the book sort of ends up becoming this meditation on what it takes to be free, because the characters are not, and they're fictionalized versions of the real guys, but they're not the kind of guys who, I mean, they're the kind of people who are in prison. They don't make the best choices. So as they're trying to escape, they're not making the best choices, and they have to, it's like the person who lives is the person who can escape their own worst impulses, sort of.
It's interesting because reading the book, there's moments where you're like, how did you guys even come up with the plot to escape? Because you're screwing everything up, along the way, and just these, the tensions between them and the conflicts that arise. What I'm curious about, I have my theories, but like, why did they approach you? And I'm not being like, why did you get the job? It's like, what made Bess think of you as the artist for this?
That's a really good question. I don't know exactly. I know that Bess has been a fan of my work for a while. And I have done a lot of historical fiction in the past. My very first book was called Petrograd, and it was about the death of Rasputin, and sort of takes place around the Russian Revolution. And then I also did a book called Harrow County that takes place in the 1930s South. And so I had a history of historical fiction. And I sort of grew up all around Southern California and Central California too, which is where Out of Alcatraz mostly takes place. Mm-hmm. So, but I don't know if Bess actually knew that.
Okay,
but that did make me a good choice.
I imagine like she had like a board with a bunch of artist names and threw a dart and just landed on you. And
well, I think every editor has like the list of the guys that they're like, okay, when this comes up, I'm going to call this guy, and when this one comes up, I'm going to call this person.
Well, and knowing your work, it makes sense. Not just the historical fiction stuff, but the style of your, I think of like there's in comics and graphic novels, sequential art, there's 2 or 3 camps or styles, and one is like, oh, this is all like very superhero-ish. This is very cartoonish, and there's a almost like a fine art quality to your work. I especially think about Harrow County, where it's like, and I've never really talked to you much about your process, but I've assumed everything is done by hand. It looks like most of your work is hand painted, and so there's this very fine art quality to it. So that's why I would pick you if I was sitting around going, who would be right for Alcatraz, out of Alcatraz. What was the research process like this? First off, because you've talked about doing some period pieces, historical fiction, are you like a research junkie? Are you one of those people who goes down the massive rabbit hole and
I don't really go down a lot of rabbit holes, but I do like to get very specific.
Okay.
So like I definitely search the internet for photo reference for all this stuff. I bought a yearbook, like a college yearbook from Fresno from the year, so I could see like some good photos of like young people wearing normal clothes.
Okay.
But mostly it just gave me good hairdo reference. Like the hairdos in the yearbook were great.
I never would have thought to do that one.
I felt like a genius when I thought of that. Like, to be honest, like I was like, it was like $20 on eBay, get the yearbook that I need, and good to go.
But seriously, how did you come up with that idea? Because like I'm running with that one.
I think that I was just starting on Out of Alcatraz, and I went over to my parents' house and saw my mom's yearbook, and I think that's what triggered it. And I was like, I need to find the one.
Because I have like some of my dad's yearbooks, and it's always interesting looking at stuff from, the before times, right? And everybody looks like they're like my dad's yearbooks are all in the 60s, and like everybody looks like they're 45, but they're all 16. It's very odd. So okay, so you got the yearbooks, and
the other really good research story is that we had a specific police station that I needed to reference.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to get some good photos of this, because it's actually just got torn down in like 2006 or something.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I was like, I'm going to find out what it looked like in the 60s, and I could not find reference for it anywhere. And I ended up calling up the library in Redding, California, and talking to a librarian. I was just like, do you have any photos of this building? And she went and found somebody did a history zine
Okay.
that was just published local, and she sent me some scans of the building as it looked in 1964 when it first opened, and it was amazing. Like, librarians are,
I was going to say, they're
like, a treasure.
They are it's now, have you ever played Stump the Librarian? Like, I love trying to come up with stuff where they're like, what the hell are you talking about? And I got the at the LA Public Library, the main branch downtown. I think they hate me now because I've asked a bunch of questions that they couldn't answer. But no, librarians are great. Go to your local library, thank them for the work they do. They're keeping us informed in a time when people are trying to keep information from us. Yeah. Okay, so you reached out and you were looking at hairstyles and yearbooks and all that sort of stuff. Did you so the story itself, Christopher Cantwell wrote the screenplay. Was there any back and forth? I'm curious, like, what your collaborative process was like with him. And because you also said usually when screenplays come your way, your eyes roll back in your head. What was it? Was there anything specific about this screenplay that made you go, yeah, I can work with this person, or it was really grabbing you? Like, oh my God, I can't wait to draw these guys on a raft.
Yeah. Well, the thing that grabbed me in the story is the structure of the way it's told is one of my favorite structures, where it's like, you have an ensemble of characters, and they all have their unique sort of challenges that they're dealing with. But at the end of the day, it's like they're all dealing with the exact same challenge. And you have to see, like, every character is coming at it from a different angle and has different tools to deal with it, and the results come out differently. And that's like one of my favorite books ever written was The Heart is a Lonesome Hunter. And that book is like that, where it's like everybody is lonely, and everybody sort of messes up being lonely in their own special way. And our story is the same thing, where it's like everybody is trying really, really, really hard to get free. And none of them really have a good plan for how to accomplish that goal.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because you, again, reading the book, you begin to think about, what's worse, to be locked up in prison or be escaped from prison and essentially be free, but you're on the run. You're always worried about, is someone going to recognize me? Am I going to get caught? And it really, I had never quite really thought about it the way I thought about it until I read the book. But going back to what I was asking, like, how much of it was there, again, the collaboration between the two of you guys. One of the artists that I work with, Marcus Kwame Anderson, I always let him know, okay, here's the script, and if anything doesn't make sense, ask me a question, but if you think there's a better way to tell this story, or this scene, or even the story as a whole, like, I rely on him to make sure the story works, because if it ain't working for him, then it's probably not going to work for a reader.
Yeah. Well, I working with Chris was really, really nice, because like I've had a couple people that I've worked with. Chris was like this. Cullen Bunn was like this, where they'll send me a script, and I don't have any questions when it's done. It's like I read the script and I can picture it in my head, and I'm like ready to go.
Okay.
And so that was what most of Out of Alcatraz was like. The only thing with Out of Alcatraz was I didn't get the script for the final issue until maybe a week before I was supposed to start on it. Everything else I had well ahead of time. And so I was sort of like texting Chris, and I was just like, do we know how this ends? Because he hadn't actually told me what the exact ending was. And he was like, yeah, I got it. And I was actually,
lying.
I was really nervous, because I've never done that, where it's like I had I've never gotten an issue quite that late from a writer before, and when he got it, I was just like so happy, so happy. But it's like when I collaborate with a writer, I have a like if you guys know improv, like stand-up improv stuff, where you're supposed to yes and the person you're improving with. You're never supposed to say no. I try really, really hard to bring that to my collaborations with my writers, where it's like if the writer writes a script, I'm supposed to say, okay, and I'm going to add this to it, and try to take it, one step further. And it's sometimes like when I was working with Cullen Bunn on Harrow County, he would send horror like monster ideas, and I would read it and be like, oh, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like this monster sounds terrible. And then I would like sit with it for a moment and be like, okay, but what is actually cool about it? And I would find the thing that I thought was cool about it and try to bring the stuff that Cullen thought was cool about it and what I thought was cool about it and make something that was like 3 times cooler than what we wanted.
And it's crazy that you say that, because Harrow County, I know we're talking about Out of Alcatraz, but Harrow County is an visually amazing story. It's also very well written. It's a compelling book. But to hear you say that is like, really? Okay. Now that this leads to, because I think we can talk about more than just Out of Alcatraz. You also write, and I'm totally drawing a blank. I did not prepare myself well. You recently wrapped up a series. It was the what was it? The one at
the Lonesome Hunters.
Lonesome Hunters. Okay, so you write as well as do art. What's it like for you? Is it easy for you to turn off the writer in your head when you're working with a writer? Or do you ever be like, your second act structure just isn't working, and like how do you handle that?
I don't think. Well, I guess I just work with writers that I trust.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That's sort of the answer to that. Because I don't, I really do, when I'm working with a writer, I really do think that the writer, I respect the writer's job. And especially since I've started writing my own stuff, I respect it even more. It's sort of like, I don't want to be the second writer in the room. I don't want to be trying to rewrite things. And so, like I said, it's like the yes and, where it's like, even if I don't think the structure is right, I'm like, okay, well, this is what I have. What can I bring to it? What can I add to it? How can I massage this so that it feels right to me? And usually it hasn't been a problem, because, I've been just incredibly lucky to work with some really, really good writers.
Do you think you're going to move more towards writing and drawing exclusively yourself, one person operation, or where is there?
No.
Okay.
The thing that I found when I started writing my stuff is that writing is.
It's so easy.
It's so hard. It is really, really hard in a completely different way.
Yeah.
Like I think. Drawing a graphic novel is very hard. It's very labor intensive. There's so many hours just at the board, drawing, painting, putting this whole book together. But writing is really like, it's like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like having a puzzle. It's like those puzzles with no image on them.
Yes.
It's just like a solid color. It's like that. It's like you have to put this thing together, but there's no roadmap for how to get it done. And you get stuck sometimes not being able to figure out how to move to the next step. And
that would be me almost every day of my life. And I even get stuck in my dreams. Like my dreams don't make any sense, and it's full of plot holes, and then I wake up sweating and freaking out.
Well, and we were talking a little bit just before we started here about just the run-up time when you're writing. Like as the artist for a graphic novel, it's like I'm always, just a few months ahead of publication. But the writer, lots of times, started writing a story, like The Lonesome Hunters, for example. I started that 10 years before I did the last page on it. So, having that patience to sit with an idea for years is so hard sometimes.
It's a crazy thing. I was just I was talking to an editor recently, and I wrapped up a graphic novel script a little over a year ago. And for whatever reason, they did not give the script to the artist until the summer, so 6 months later, and then his schedule didn't permit him to get started until November, which was just a few months ago. So we're talking, I mean, I've been done a year, and it's a 200+ page book, so he's not going to be done for another 2 years. And you know, it's like, oh yeah, I wrote that, you know, back when I was young and I didn't have as much gray hair. And it's writing can be. My hat is off to anybody in this particular medium who writes and draws, because the two, I wish I could, most of the time I wish I could draw until I realize, oh no, then I'd be obsessing over two separate things, right? Writing and trying to make the art look halfway decent. So, but you're still going to keep writing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely. In fact, I'm writing a couple things right now.
Are you ever going to write and then work with another artist? Is that?
Yeah, in fact, I guess, well, that's the other thing about being a writer, is that you end up having multiple projects that just are running at the same time, and you're trying to balance some stuff. But so I'm working on, the only one I can really talk about right now is I'm working on an adaptation of a history book called The Temecula Massacre.
Oh, okay.
And I'm working with the writers who wrote that book, and another artist is drawing it.
Okay.
And that's just a straight adaptation, though. And then I'm writing another book that just got greenlit. We're still waiting on the contracts, though. So I guess, but that'll be someone else to draw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you done that yet? Have you been just the writer and the captain of the ship, as it were?
No, this is new stuff for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any concerns that I can help you with right now?
Well,
I mean, that's what we're here for. Let's have an open session.
It's weird, because it's like you really build, and you probably know this, you build that image in your head of what the story is going to be, and you hand it off to someone, and it comes back completely different, no matter what you do. And it's so hard sometimes to judge if it's better or worse or just different.
Well, it's always different.
It's always different.
And so if you can, what I do is I try to get rid of as much of the idea of better or worse, and I just embrace different, and then I ask myself, is this telling the story that I'm hoping to tell, both within the panel, within the page, within the scene, and within the larger story? And that's something that, you know, a lot of, and if you're lucky, you have enough time to sit with the art, because a lot of times the first time you get it, you look at it and it's either shock or elation. And sometimes the thing that shocks you, you're like, this is nothing at all what I imagined. You sit with it, and then a day or two later, you're like, oh, but I can really work with this. And then there's other times where you love the art initially, and then when you look at it, you go, oh, wait a sec, this isn't quite working, and you're trying to figure out, and you know, I talk about this regularly, Brian and I talk about this, like, I treat it as my job. The first thing I try to figure out is, how do I change my writing? How do I resculpt my writing to work with the art? Because what I can rewrite in an hour, it might take you, the artist, a week to do. And so that you should never be so married to your specific words. That's the first thing. The words aren't that precious. The ideas are precious, but you can change them. You can shift things around, and it's I don't sculpt, but I think about it as being like almost like a sculpture, right? Or in film, you know, there's editing, and that's where everything really comes together. And so I watch a lot of, I'm still into physical media, so I watch a lot of like Blu-rays and DVDs, and I watch the deleted scenes, because I'm always curious about what got cut and why. And so that helps. For me as a writer, that helps, because I studied art, and I can kind of almost draw, but I can clearly see things in my head. And so I have that problem when the art shows up, and it's just different. The little voice in my head is going, it's just different, David, don't worry, it's not bad, it's not good, it's just different. So
do you find, like, like I find that the more I've been doing this, because I've gotten a couple issues in with this other artist, and the more we work on it, the more I find like I'm learning what I need to put in a script. It's sort of like when you're doing the art for the thing, it takes a while to learn. It's like you're putting all these you're taking a recipe and you're putting it together, and you have to put it together in a way that a reader can like decode what you're laying down and figure it out. And when you're writing a script, it's like an audience of one. It's like you really have to lay it down in a place that's really specific for communicating to one person.
Yes.
It's very, very interesting. You know, should we say, just for anybody who doesn't know, does anybody not know what a comic book script looks like? Okay. It is usually, it'll be a breakdown of the comic. So it'll be like, there'll be a page, and it'll say page 1, panel 1. Guy enters the room and says, "Hi, I'm here to see the president." Panel 2, the president says, "You know, why are you in my bathroom?" You know, whatever. Like the so it's like the script breaks it down to that level where it's like the page, panel, dialogue, and action. And so it's different than a like a movie script, which is almost all dialogue.
Yeah.
With some direction and stuff.
And it's like I tend to write my stuff very informally, and I try to get to know, even if I can't get to know the artist on a personal level. If I know I'm working with an artist, the first thing I do is get as much of their work as I possibly can, and I study it. I look for patterns. I look for what I think are strengths. I look for what I suspect might be weaknesses, and then I start thinking about what have I not seen them do, and can I challenge them? And then when I'm really fortunate, I get to talk to the artist, or we have email exchanges, and I ask questions. And so I tend to, and I will even do this with a script that's already done, and then later an artist comes on board and I will tweak it a little bit, and I'll like, hey, what kind of music do you, what are some of your favorite albums? And then, it's like, and if you say to me, oh, well, I love John Coltrane, I'll, in the script, I'd write to you, okay, right now I want you to put on, Love Supreme, track 3, because that's what I was thinking of. And, awesome. And trying to find, because I feel like we're in this together, but I feel as the writer, if my job is to push you to do your best, because the vast majority of people who are going to read our book are going to read it based on the art that you create. And so my job is to like, even if it pisses you off in the process, there's an artist that I work with who's always saying to me, I can't draw this. And I always say to him, you just haven't drawn it yet. And I would never ask an artist to draw something that I didn't think that they could do.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of it. I mean, I talk about the collaborative nature of it all the time, and it really is. We have, to me, hold on, my phone's going off here. Oh, it's my take my evening meds reminder that I forgot to bring with me. We were talking about setting alarms to remind yourself to do stuff, and I always ignore my alarms. But yeah, no, it's interesting because I feel my philosophy is always the book is the most important thing, right? I don't have kids of my own, but it's like, if I did, I wouldn't want to raise my children to be just like me. I'd want to raise them to be the best versions of whoever they want to be, who they feel like they are inside. So, anyway.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of, especially really young new writers, sort of tend to want to be possessive of the project, and aren't as necessarily as open to letting the artists do. And really, like, if you wanted to draw a parallel, it's like the writer, like comics art of, if you compare them to comics to television and movies, it's like the writer is like the screenwriter, and the artist is like the actors, directors, cinematographer. It's like they're the person that tells the story. So it's like the writer, like creates the story and builds the structure, and then the artist is the one who tells the story.
Yeah, and for me, I tend to think of it more as the writer of a comic is the writer and the director, or the co-director. The artist is the cinematographer, and in some cases also the like the composer, the music, right? Because comics don't have music, and so Marcus, one of the artists I work with all the time, we talk about music, and we talk about, okay, if you're watching a movie, like, the music will tell you when you're supposed to cry. The music will tell you when you're supposed to be scared. There'll be like, where a jump scare is, they put in sound effects. We don't have any of that. So we have to figure out, how do we get them to laugh? How do we get them? And when I say laugh, I'm not talking like I want the reader to laugh out loud. I want them to cry. I want them to, when we were working on Big Jim and the White Boy, I said to Marcus, the one goal is I want everybody who reads this book to cry, and if they don't, we have failed. And he's like, oh, and he said, yeah, okay. And there was a couple scenes in particular I sent them to him. I was like, okay, I cried while I wrote this. Let's see if you cry while you're drawing it. And he said to me, I don't cry over stuff like that. And then one day I get this call, and he's like, you got me to cry. And I was like, yes, okay. And people walk up to us, and every event we do together, there's always at least one person who says, you got me to cry. And I just laugh at him. I go, good. So
it worked.
Yeah.
It worked on me. But the thing that I don't think I truly understood about storytelling until I'd been making comics for a little while is the moment. If you want someone to cry, you have to have that moment that makes them cry, but you have to work at it for 200 pages.
Yeah.
To get, you have to be like, on page 1, you have to be thinking, okay, on page 198,
yeah,
I gotta set this up so that they cry, and we gotta work on this.
I call it earning the moment, right? I think that everything we do as creatives, we're trying to earn the moment. If it's a laugh, we have to earn it. And it's not just what we're trying to get from the reader, it's what the characters are doing. And so, there's I recently rewatched, have you ever seen LA Confidential, based on the James Ellroy book?
Long time ago.
I love that movie, and it's a great book, but I absolutely love that movie. And there's a moment in that, the movie came out in the 90s, there's a moment in that movie where every time I watch it, I yell in the theater when I saw it, I yelled at the screen. And when I watch it at home, I yell at the TV. And it's, spoiler alert, because we've passed the spoiler limitation or whatever. It's the scene where Russell Crowe loses his shit, and he hits Kim Basinger. And his character, the one thing he hates is men who hit women, right? And he goes nuts over it. And then something happens to him, and he loses it, and he hits her, and you see it coming, and she sees it coming, and don't do it, don't do it, Bud, don't do it, Bud White. And in the theater, in 90 whatever, when he did it, I started crying, because that's how real his character felt, and that's how much that emotion was earned. And I think about that, so I'm always thinking, okay, how can we Bud White him? How can we, get him like Russell Crowe crying? So. No, it's there's, I think, I don't know if it's abnormal to think this way. I like to think everyone's as nutty as I am, and when it comes to the creative process, because otherwise, why are we doing it?
Yeah. You know what I've always wanted to ask you?
Sure. About
doing historical stuff is, how true to history do you feel like you want to be with stuff?
Okay. That's a great question. It depends on the extent of it. So when we did like the Black Panther Party, I wanted to, because it was nonfiction, I wanted to get as accurate as we could be. But there was a moment where Marcus was trying to draw a panel, just one panel, with Bobby Seale and Huey Newton in front of the Black Panther Party, their first headquarters. And there are no pictures of it. And he got stumped, and he's doing, and you're thinking, okay, this isn't that long ago. This is only 50, 60 years ago, so there should be pictures, and there were none. And finally, I had to say to him, just let it go. right? And he's like, no, no. And I was like, look, you got because Huey Newton used to drive a Volkswagen Bug. I was like, you got the Volkswagen Bug, and you got the right ear and the right color. No one's going to be complaining that you don't have the right building. But I get pretty. It's really almost manic when it comes to that. Maybe manic's not the right word, but it's very important to me that we try to keep some accuracy there. But then it's also like, well, if we're venturing into either historical fiction or something that's more speculative, it's like, well, let's have fun with this. Let's, again, because the biggest sin that we can do, I think, is to lose the reader, is to lose the reader because we just haven't done something compelling. I don't want to change things dramatically, but our jobs, like I feel my job is to be entertaining, and because I love nonfiction, I also want to be informative, but I don't ever want to be boring. I don't like. My ADHD distracts me so quickly. It doesn't take much for me to go, oh, page 5, I'm done. Throw the book, in the corner. So, how about you? How is it for you?
I have never landed on a philosophy that I feel good about when it comes to that question. I mean, with some stuff, I feel like, it doesn't matter. Like, my job is to be entertaining, like you say. But in other times, like with Out of Alcatraz, there's a part of me that's like, these guys might still be alive, And I'm like, what would they think about me? Like, we made this fake version of them that we essentially made up of whole cloth, and Chris Cantwell and I had conversations where we're like, do you think they would get a kick out of this? Like, I think I would. If I escaped from Alcatraz and people were making up like wild stories about me, I think I would think it was hilarious. But I have no idea what these real guys would think of. And like that part of me is like a little bit unsure. And like, Petrograd was the same thing where it is historical fiction, but I've had conversations with people in the past where I was sort of like, after speaking to them for a while, I realized that they didn't understand that this was fiction.
Well, that's people don't realize Star Wars is fiction.
Yeah.
I mean, so you gotta. There's one of the things that I talk about all the time, and I is that the final collaborator in the process is the person reading it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the moment you finish it, put it off, it goes to the printer, someone else picks it up and reads it, it's theirs. And so someone will say to me, there's a book that came out very recently, and it's like this academic study of comics, and there's a bunch of stuff in there about this book that I co-write, Bitter Root. And I'm reading it, and I'm going, really? This is what it's about? And so when someone says something to me, like, oh, I just love that metaphor that you were doing about blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I've never had a situation where I've stopped somebody and said, no, you're wrong. I just go, yep, that's it, and then I make the little mental note and go, the next time someone interviews me or does a podcast, I'm going to say this. So,
well, you know that meme of the guy, I don't know what it's from, but the guy who says like, I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards. It's like, that's really true. Like you sometimes you're like, okay, I'm going to telegraph this as hard as I can in this story. And people will come away thinking that you're like the most subtle, delicate, like writer or artist in the world.
It's if you try to figure out, you're better off. If you want to know what's going to happen in the future, you move to Portland, Oregon, and you just wait for the rain to hit, and it's pretty easy to figure out. But that's about it, right? So I get. It's interesting when people. I don't necessarily like to be preached to unless I'm listening to, early Public Enemy album or The Clash, something like that. So I try not to be too preachy, but I know what I'm trying to say. And if people get it, that's fine. If they don't get it, that's fine. As long as they're entertained. That's the thing that matters the most to me. Now, if they're completely off base. And if they go, yeah, I loved your book, and it's, the thing I liked about it was the way you condone cannibalism. And it's like, no, so. But it's interesting again how people interpret stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So I want to open this up to questions. I don't know if anyone has any questions. Does anybody have any questions? Come on. I knew. I was waiting. Go on. Okay. And then I'll get back there. But yeah.
So this is getting to like the, when you earn that emotional moment, do you find that the pacing leading into that emotional moment, do you have to do something where it's like fast paced and then slows down? Maybe like your panel selection becomes action to action because you're really drawing that out? Or when that emotional moment happens, you kind of can't, it's situational. You're not going to know what panel layout's going to work until you get there.
So the question is, when you're leading up to an emotional moment, how do you deal with, to get into it basically, right? And like you said, it is case by case for me at least. It's like, because there's so many different kinds of emotions, So like the moments can be scary, or they can be sad, or they can be happy, all that stuff. And the way you lead up to that, it almost always comes down to like how the character is approaching that moment. Like, if the moment is that a character is like realizing something important, then you might go moment to moment where you're like, you can see their face changing as like their thoughts are moving. Or if the moment is like violence, it's like sometimes that's really nice. If it sort of feels like it explodes out of nowhere and feels uncomfortable. And like, yeah, I mean, it totally depends on the moment.
Yeah, same for me. I mean, I will map stuff out, and I tend to think about the flow and the rhythm of a scene, and like, okay, what happens when we turn the page? What are we going to reveal on a page turn? What happens at the upper left-hand corner of the page, that panel there, and is it compelling enough to get someone to read all the way to the bottom right corner, right? But it's what's interesting to me is I have something that someone's writing for me right now, and I wrote a page. It was 9 panels, and in my mind, it was 3 rows, 3 panels each, and there was a specific rhythm that I wrote to it, an emotional rhythm, and it had to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and she didn't draw it that way, and I was like, did I fail as a writer to explain this to her? Did she just not see this? And then I went back and I looked at all of her other pages, and I was like, and then I reread what I wrote, and I was like, no, she just wasn't paying attention. She wasn't actually paying attention to the emotional rhythm. And so when we talk about stuff like this, it's the lesson I learned from this experience that's going on right now. It's like, oh, I didn't talk to her enough about this. And she's new. This is like her first ever real story she's drawn. She's young. But I always think about light and dark. I tend to think about as much of it as I can, and then I write it in the script. I try to write it in the script, but then I'm also going to defer to the artist a lot of the times. Not all the time, because sometimes there's something in your head that's so specific. It's like, no, it has to be this. Like otherwise, there was one thing that I'm trying to remember the specific thing, and the artist. Oh, I remember exactly the specific thing. But there was if you're reading stuff in a physical book, if it's an odd numbered page, it's on the right, even numbered pages are on the left. So if you have a big surprise, you want it to be on an even numbered page. You want on page 3, when the person turns the page, to go to page 4, and they go, because when people turn the page, they tend to see page 5 before they see page 4. This is how people's eyes work, right? So they are on page 3, they turn it, they see page 5, and then they look over at 4 and they go. And I wrote this thing specifically, and the artist was like, oh, I changed something. And I was like, what did you change? And he goes, oh, you'll see, you'll love it. It's so much better. And it was like, dude, this is so much worse. You blew it. And he didn't get it. And that's when you realize, like, oh, I'm a nerd who thinks about stuff like, again, going back to LA Confidential, when Russell Crowe's character is talking about the one thing he hates. The one thing I hate is a woman beater, you know? And you don't think much about that moment until you start to realize emotionally, oh shit, he's about to go there. And then suddenly you get that payoff, right? So I do try to think about, you don't earn the moment 2 pages before, you earn it 100 pages before, so.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I follow up?
Yes,
Sure.
I do. You can't follow up. No, go on. Just kidding.
So I was just talking with a book club earlier this week about how like everything in a comic is intentional. That everything is intentional. Everything that's added in art is intentional. So for those emotional reveals that you said, like LA Confidential seems like a good example where it sets it up, pays off later. When that emotional payoff happens, is that impactful because it reveals about the character or it reveals about the story?
It's sometimes it's both. Sometimes it's one thing. If it's both things at the same time, it's great. I mean, and that's with something like LA Confidential. It's James Ellroy having done it in the novel, and then it's the filmmakers taking that epic story and paring it down and figuring out ways to do it. And those moments it has to reveal one or the other. If it doesn't reveal both, it has to reveal something about character, or it has to do something to move the story forward. And if it doesn't do either of those, no matter how good of a scene it is, I had an editor, there's a book that I wrote, and there was one chapter in it, and this was prose, that I knew all the time that chapter had to come out of the book. And it was one of the most emotionally powerful scenes, but it was a supporting character scene, and it didn't propel the story forward, and it didn't reveal anything about the lead character. It just revealed something about the supporting character. And I refused to cut it until my editor said, this has got to go. And you know, my first instinct was, what do you know? But I knew she was right. And it's like, if you're not in service to the story and the characters within the story, within this world, I feel you're wasting everybody's time. And it's like, it doesn't matter how much you love it. It matters how much does it work for the story. So.
I have to say though.
Okay. Oh yeah, argue with me.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. For the camera, sorry.
So the question is, does important moments have to affect characters or story or both? Your answer is both, or it can be both.
It can be both, but it has to be one or the other.
Yeah, and I think like I'm a character guy.
Yeah.
So like for me, everything is always characters. Like the big moments are always a character moment for me. Like I really don't care about plot with a lot of stuff. I would like I really love that genre of 70s movie that was like, here's a 2-hour movie about some asshole, and like nothing really happens. You just watch this guy be a jerk for an hour and a half, and to like destroy his own life or whatever. But also there's moments in comics that I love so much. Like in Sophie Campbell's Wet Moon, there's like this. I don't remember if it's 1 page or 2 pages. And it's completely unrelated to the story, but there's like this sequence where she shows this cat at its cat bowl and water bowl, and it takes one kibble and like plops it into the water. And it does not move the story forward at all. It doesn't even reflect like any character thing, because it's like this cat that's not an important character at all. And I think about that moment all the time, and every time I'm writing a story, I'm like, how can I do this cat kibble moment? Like, how can I get, and it's just like I guess there's like, if you want to compare it again to movies and TVs, it's like sometimes there'll be a moment where like a character will have some little bit of business that is just like engrossing, even though it's not like a story thing, and it doesn't really, usually it will reflect the character. Like, I guess I learned the character about this cat, and I like love this cat character, but.
Well, and so now the thing I would do in that scenario is I would ask myself, what about this cat with the piece of kibble is resonating in me? And
why did the cat want to do that?
But like no, so there's certain key moments in movies or in comics that do have that do resonate, and I will sometimes ask myself, why am I feeling this way? And it's always, a lot of times it's something that's less obvious, and then I think, okay, what's that little moment that I can put in there? And what's beautiful for me as a writer is sometimes the artist puts something in there that I didn't even write, and it's an expression. You see this emotion that you didn't write into the panel description, but they've added that emotion. Or you say, like, there's 3 characters, and one of them's surprised, one of them's indifferent, and then the other is really surprised. But then, like, how do you draw surprised versus really surprised? And then really surprised is something you just never envisioned, and the story changes. So I think a lot of it is about being, I guess, flexible and being open. And I think the worst thing any of us can do creatively is to be so closed off to the possibility that different is good, right? That change, and even sometimes changing the emotional, some of the emotional resonance within a scene works. So.
Well, and I guess, like, to answer your thing is that there's no formula for any of this. It's all just, it's like how you tell the story in the moment. And in fact, sometimes, like, the only thing that, like, the closest thing I can ever come up with a formula for storytelling is, like, beginning, middle, and end. And, like, that's it. Like,
oh, that's so cliche.
Yeah, but it's like a panel kind of has a beginning, middle, and end. A page has a beginning, middle, and end. An issue has a beginning, middle, and end. A series of, everything has, like, that same, like, setup, follow through, and result.
Yeah.
And, like, that's basically it. And then you can get, like, infinitely complex with that. They can get fractaled out into, like,
oh God, yes.
yeah.
And a lot of that becomes, I think, for me anyway, it becomes, it's almost like me giving into the fear of finishing something, right? As long as I keep playing around with stuff, I don't have to commit to it. I don't have to, no one is going to see it, so therefore no one will judge me, so therefore no one will reject me, so therefore I won't feel rejected, so therefore my inner wounded child won't become more inner wounded. I'm just going to stay stuck in this pattern. At some point you have to make the decision, and you go, does the cat licking the piece of kibble stay or go, right? So I know there's a question back there somewhere. You sure?
Do we already get to it?
We'll get to Brian second, but behind Brian.
Go.
Yeah.
So, as an artist who's doing your own colors, do you come up with the palette ahead of time or as you're going along? And sort of specifically, how did it develop in Out of Alcatraz? Because it's a very different color palette than what I'm most familiar with yours in Harrow County and Lonesome Hunters, which is a good story too.
I did a couple test pages before I started on Out of Alcatraz. Oh, so the question is, how do I develop my color palettes for books like Out of Alcatraz? And so I did a couple test pages, and there was a couple things that were really important to me. Like, I have a real strong memory of being in Central Valley, California in the summer, riding my bike around, and it being hot as hell, and the way, like, the fields are like this beautiful green, and then all the hills are this, like, scorched brown, golden brown color. And so I did some tests to see how close I could get to my memory of that. And then I sort of worked out, so there's a couple different things, like there's a couple different factions, for lack of a better word, or different, like, character groups that are sort of moving through Out of Alcatraz. And there's characters that are cops, and I tried to give everything that, like, a slightly green tint, and it's pretty subtle. Like, I don't know how much it comes across in the final print edition, but it's like I tried to give the cops a little bit of a green thing because that was the colors of the prison, and then the escaped convicts had this real golden color during the day, and of course then at nighttime everything was kind of blue, so it kind of blew that. It kind of ruined that whole idea and made it inconsistent. But yeah, so I had, like, a general idea of that sort of stuff. And then really when it came down to it, it was like on the day of coloring, it was like that's half the time when I was trying to figure stuff out. I mean, because it would be like, there's stuff that comes up that you just didn't think about. Like there's a couple pickup trucks in the story. And I would be like, in my head, they were both sort of this tan color. And then I was like, but the readers are going to read this and think that they're the same
thing,
truck, and they're going to get confused. So I'm like, okay, now I have to figure out what color this is going to be, and then like, oh, will that actually work because this truck is in the woods? Will they be able to see it against the green of the woods? You know what I mean? So it's like there's a lot of like just making it up and jazzing it as you go along.
And so it's funny because a lot of times I will write in the script just like, okay, because I just wrote a story that has 2 pickup trucks. They're the exact same model pickup truck. And I wrote in the script, I said, these have to be 2 different colors. And because one character drives the truck, I think I said this one will always be green because green also represents this, and then this other one's going to be yellow. And if whoever colors this wants to change it, that's fine, but they have to be 2 distinctly different colors so that when the reader sees that color, they go, oh, this is the character we're with. Again, thinking of the trucks as characters, thinking of the woods or the grass as a character. And normally I don't get too specific about this stuff unless it really means something. But then other times I do it because it's like, I don't ever want someone to have to give notes and go, oh, I meant for that house to be blue and you painted it red or you colored it red. But also knowing that sometimes the artist has a million other decisions to make. So it's like, I'm going to throw out a suggestion. You don't have to use this one, but and sometimes it's fun just to think about these things. So we probably have time for one more question. So that's you.
It's interesting to this generation of comic creators. You have a YouTube channel, and there's videos of you painting at great length. I show them in class. They're almost like Bob Ross, kind of very comic. More comic to watch than to
make.
But it is a unique interaction between readers and artists that we really didn't have before. Writers don't have it. You can't sit there and watch a writer cleaning their keyboard instead of typing. Yeah. So how has that interaction been? Like, have there been people who just watch you paint but don't buy the book, or has it brought people to the book, or I just know other artists really love these clips because it really makes them feel like, oh, I can do that too, or it motivates. Have you had any interactions with that's been unique to you, or?
Yeah, well, the question is, like, how does social media, and particularly process kind of heavy posts, affect readership? And sure, close enough. And like, I don't really have any data about like if it encourages people to buy my books or not.
That was more anecdotal, more like.
Yeah, like I definitely talked to a lot of people who have watched some of the, like mostly what I've done is like time-lapse videos on my YouTube channel, and I know a lot of people have watched those. I do a live stream every Friday where actually, hey everybody, where I'll sit down and I'll work on a process and I'll talk through what I'm doing. And for me, like, so I know that a lot of people enjoy that. And it's sort of like, there was some discussion online just today about how movies have stopped doing behind the scenes stuff now that DVDs aren't really a thing, and what a tragedy that is. But as that has like died in the movies, like the comic book process stuff has like really blossomed, and there's so much information about making comics nowadays that was not obtainable. When in fact, I got into comics kind of late. My first book came out when I was 35, and I remember just wanting to make comic books so bad, but just not like being able to imagine in my head what that process was to go from having an idea to getting it into a story laid out on a page, and to like get it to an editor and get it printed in a book. Like, this just seemed like a made-up fantasy world where that stuff happened. But now, like, how to do that? And actually, the reason why I was able to, I think, finally get into it in my 30s was because podcasts became a thing. And I remember, like, listening to a podcast with Matt Wagner and him talking about how he broke into comics. And I was just like, that makes sense! Like, it's like he just laid it all out. I'm like, whoa, you can just do it like that, okay. And literally within like a year of hearing that podcast, I had my first comic book contract. So like, so there's definitely there's a lot of interest in process stuff, and I think that's great. I think it's really, really neat that people want to know how things are made. And there's parts of me that worry that it sort of breaks the magic of it, but it doesn't. It doesn't. And like when I watch my time-lapse videos of myself painting, I'm always enthralled because I'm like, why did I do that? Or how did I get from there to here? And like, as it like builds, you know, as you watch it happen, it's like, wow, I did it. That's where.
Yeah, no, and I think that I've become a process junkie, and I think part of it is that it lets me know that I'm not alone. Other people have some of the same idiosyncrasies, right? And you know, because God forbid, if I'm working on something nonfiction or even historical fiction, and I have a question, like again, like okay, so exactly, you know, what direction does, you know, in New York City, what direction is, you know, Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard go? Is it a two-way street or a one-way street? And then I go look, and then I'm like, yeah, but what direction did it go in 1978? and then I'm like, 1978, that's when Superman the movie came out. Gee, you know, how much of that was filmed on location? And then what's Valerie Perrine up to? What's Miss Tessmacher up to?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and then the next thing you know, it's 4 days later, and I haven't written anything. So, but yeah, I love the process because it's there's something I said this to Arthur Adams. He posts a lot. He used to. He doesn't post as much stuff. I love seeing something go from the rough stage or even a blank piece of paper, blank canvas to something completed, because most people think it's magic. They open up a book, they watch a movie, oh, it just magically appeared. We know that process takes forever, and what happens is a lot of people enter into it going, I want to make comics or I want to make movies, because they see the end result. They don't see the years of hard work and the absolutely annoying, insane sort of insecurities that you have that make you freeze up, which don't necessarily go away the older you get. They can still stick with you. You just get to a point where you go, oh, the deadline is tomorrow. And if I don't turn it in, I'm going to get fired. And if I get fired, then I don't get paid. And if I don't get paid, then I get evicted. If I get evicted, then I got to go live with my friends. My friends don't like me that much. Okay, I got to finish it. So it's like that. So I think that's it. We're out of time. There are books over there. I don't know if they're going to bring the cart over there if you got to get your steps in. But we'll have you line up and sign stuff. And I just want to thank everybody for coming out. Tyler, thank you for having me.
No, thank you,
do
man.
This was great. If you haven't read Out of Alcatraz, it's a really, really compelling book, and it's fun to read because you're going, well, wait, is this how it happened? And you know, we don't know. That's what makes it fun.
Even if it's wrong, it feels right.
Yeah. Like my last 5 relationships.
Hey, thanks for coming out, man.
How you doing?
How are you? Yeah, you're right. When we were kids,